The next agenda item, discussion and possible action regarding the following complaints filed on October 13th, 2020 by Mark Littlefield against Save Boston Now, which complaint alleged violations of City Code Chapter 2-2 Campaign Finance, Sections 2-2-23 Political Committees and 2-2-26 Filing Campaign Finance Report Data of Chapter 2-2 Campaign Finance. So members, commissioners rather, I'm used to the legislature where committees are members. As you're likely well aware now, the respondents asked for a continuance late last week, and I decided to grant that continuance. I think we can discuss issues following our last meeting in which we kind of had a conversation about evidentiary issues. Those evidentiary issues are part of the reason that the respondents requested a continuance. So at this time, I'm happy to open the floor, commissioners, to questions or comments on this specific item. So not seeing any immediate takers. Oh, Commissioner Danberg, and then I saw Commissioner Greenberg. So Danberg, you go first.
I'm curious as to what evidence is not available now that would be available if a continuance were granted.
That's a good question. I think at least one of the things that might be available, and it's something that we would have to think a little bit more about. It's the subject of of any public information requests that the parties have made, since those take time. But again, it's within our discretion as a commission. When we're in these meetings, I'm left with that discretion when we're not. But it's within our discretion at these meetings to kind of decide whether or not that's worth waiting for, in a sense. But and then absent that, there was potentially, if there's an agreement made on some of the other evidentiary points that they weren't able to arrive at last week, and then resolving kind of this website question. Yes, Commissioner, you have a follow-up, Commissioner Danberg?
Well, I do. It appears to me that both sides had said that they would get and present evidence, and both sides are now saying they cannot, or at this point at least cannot. I'd like to hear from both of them about why it is that today they cannot, but if we have a continuance, they can in a month.
That's a good question. One thing that I'll offer is that part of the reason we have a sort of evidence deadline, so to speak, in our final hearings is because, when we put out a notice of a final hearing to the parties, we tell the parties that by 5 p.m. on the Wednesday preceding the hearing date, that we want the evidence they're going to present, and it's to give us commissioners time to look at that. In last week on Wednesday, the respondent had reached out and requested a continuance, and I had asked them to see what they could do by Friday, because I thought that, while we wouldn't get the benefit of a full week to digest it as commissioners, that maybe over the weekend and the first part of this week would be enough time for us to review what they could get. And then Friday, they said that they were still not able to produce and obtain the evidence that they've wanted. So Commissioner Greenberg, you had your hand up a while back, and then I'll go Commissioner McCormick.
So looking at the draft minutes from March, assuming these are correct, which I believe they are, the only evidence was from Save Austin Now, and there were 6 pieces of evidence. Did they choose to provide any of those pieces? For example, number 6 says all public 501c paperwork and filings by Save Austin Now, which shouldn't have anything to do with the website.
Sure. I'm gonna, because Mr. Sheets has, our outside counsel, Mr. Steve Sheets, has been working with the parties on some of the evidentiary matters. I'm gonna ask him, I'm gonna put your question to him if Save Austin Now, the respondent, had produced those specific documents.
As far as I know, they haven't produced anything.
Okay. Well, I must say that's disappointing, because it seemed like we were told those things, either there was nothing relevant, in which case we should get a note that there's nothing relevant to number 3 or 4 or whatever it is, and the rest should have been provided because there was a commitment at the last meeting to provide that information. I just don't even know what to say when people don't do what they commit to, but perhaps the deadline should not be the Wednesday before our next meeting. Perhaps the deadline should be next Wednesday. And then maybe we should have an emergency meeting to decide what to do, because if we don't have the evidence, we can just assume, I know, like we did last time.
Sure. Commissioner McCormick, I saw your hand up. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk.
That's what I was going to ask, was how long are we going to extend their time of when to submit the evidence to us, or if they don't have it, to let us know? You know, since they haven't had it for more than one time, are we going to give them a week or two or longer, or what?
So what I'll offer is kind of the direction that I've given our outside counsel when I was kind of confronted with the email on Friday that was transmitted to me by respondent, from respondent, where what I had said was, that as a full timeline of events, Wednesday there was a request for a continuance, and the response that I relayed to the respondent was, see what you can get by Friday, 5. If you can't get or produce what you think you need by Friday at 5, then I'll grant the continuance. Friday comes, they inform us we can't get and produce what we think we need. And so at that point, what I want to communicate to the respondent was, I urge you to continue working with complainant and our outside counsel to resolve these issues, and to also work with them to see if there's an agreeable date in which we could have a special called meeting. And I think, and so I specifically made that request because what I'm hearing is frustration that it's taking as long as it's taken, and I very much sympathize with that frustration. This was a complaint that was filed in October. We first had a meeting about it in November, I believe. It should not take half a year to resolve a complaint. But just wanted to let you all know that was something that I had included in granting the continuance, was urging them to find an agreeable special called meeting date. I saw Commissioner Kale's hand.
Yeah, I'm just going to make an observation. It seems to me that in some ways, the fact that we're doing these meetings virtually is allowing some things that normally garner more public attention to just kind of muddle along. And this virtual situation is sort of conducive to respondents or whoever have you being able to punt things down the road a little bit. That's just an observation to me, because I think normally some of these issues would be getting a lot more public attention because some of the people are some of the organizations are fairly high profile. And there's nothing we can do about that until we meet back in person. So it's very, very frustrating to have people claim they can't produce things that they committed to producing and they agreed to, and that seem like, a a quick search of your file should be able to produce, but that's just my 2 cents worth.
Sure, appreciate that, Commissioner Kale. Commissioners, are there any other kind of comments, questions, discussion? The other thing that I kind of forgot to include in having the message relayed back to respondents about do your best to resolve the evidentiary issues, do your best to work with counsel and complainant to find an agreeable date for a special called meeting. I think I'd also asked them for an explanation about this website issue and why they were not able to access their own website. So hoping to see an explanation of that issue as well. Commissioner Danberg, go ahead.
I don't see the complainant or the respondent on my screen. Are they even here?
Hmm.
No, they were informed that there was a continuance granted on the final hearing. You know, if complainant had wanted to, he could have signed up for citizen communication and have been present. But since we're agendized to discuss the final hearing, but since there is no final hearing, City Code does require respondents and complainants to appear at a final hearing, but there's no final hearing, thus no requirement to appear. So.
Personally, I would have liked to know that we weren't having a final hearing as well.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the commission's time, the city legal's time, our outside counsel's time is all being wasted because of this. And to me, that's a big deal.
Yeah. I apologize for not informing commissioners sooner. It was
And the
pretty clear.
AV time.
Yeah.
It's all wasted.
Well, I hear that. Commissioner Lerner, I saw your hand too. Go ahead.
Well, I just think that for that reason, I think, can we establish some goals for what we are doing right now so we can just be efficient? I guess I'm not even really sure what we want to accomplish right now.
Sure, I'm open. I mean, the floor is open. We are agendized to discuss and take possible action on this item. So if commissioners have ideas on possible action to take, then I'm happy to consider that. But you know, the only action that we can take is the final hearing itself, and kind of make a disposition on the case. But outside of that, I'm happy to hear suggestions on possible action. I see Commissioner Green.
I move that we request the evidence by May 3rd.
Right, well, that is a motion. Is there a second for the motion? See a second from Commissioner McCormick. Discussion on the motion then.
And maybe even state it as a deadline.
Sure. So evidence, the motion, just to restate it, is evidence to be submitted by May 3rd.
Absolutely.
First, I'm going to open the floor if anyone else has thoughts on it. I have some thoughts on the motion, but I want to defer to commissioners first. So my only concern with the motion is that in the event that we want to see a quicker resolution, I don't want to set the goalpost. What would that be?
2 days
3
after
weeks
the
out.
election.
Right. You said by May 3rd, that would be a Monday.
I thought the election is May 1st, not,
It's May 1st.
is it Saturday or Tuesday?
That's a Saturday. May 1st.
Okay, sure, Monday. Yeah, get it to us by Monday. Whatever, the election's the 1st, get us the evidence by the 3rd. They're saying it's the election that's holding them back from providing the evidence. I think having an earlier deadline, they won't meet it.
Well, so the other thing that I'm conflicted about is that we have not yet, and Mr. Sheets can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was part of my request on Friday to the respondent. We've not yet gotten an explanation as to what about the election is preventing them from sharing information. So I'm hesitant to kind of just take a party at their word that X thing is preventing me from doing something unless there's kind of a really clear line of argument, so to speak, right?
It isn't. The election isn't preventing them from providing the tax paperwork. It simply isn't. I don't believe it.
Oh, right.
They didn't provide even that piece of the evidence.
Right. Sorry, I see Commissioner Danberg. Yep.
At what point can we just declare that it is bad faith, lack of cooperation?
Yes.
Well, as a commission, I don't know if we can we don't have as a commission really kind of the ability to sanction procedural deficiencies, so to speak. So, if, there's like frivolous submissions, things like that, we don't have the ability to kind of police that as a commission. But yeah, Commissioner Danberg, go ahead.
In the real world, a judge would have held them in contempt by now.
Oh, let's do that.
The commission is not authorized to do that. We've got some working groups to talk about what the commission can and can't do. And I do want to keep our discussion germane to the motion before us. So go ahead.
Chair Soberon.
Oh, yep. Yeah, Vice Chair, go ahead.
Yes, I tend to agree that if the evidence isn't provided by May 3rd, then we just move on. Whatever the rationale is, they've been able to use email and communicate with Council Steve Sheets, and we are going to have to base any decision we have on the evidence or lack thereof, or the failure to be able to retrieve that evidence. And I'm certain that at the final hearing, the respondent will be able to give information about that, and we'll go on from there. And they understand that it will be the final hearing, and they're making an assessment just like we are as to whether they'll be ready and have what they need. This commission is limited to some extent. We can't hold them in contempt. I think we just have to go with what we have. And it does seem at this point that the respondent is being pretty obstinate.
That's well taken. Commissioner Lerner, I saw your hand. Lerner, I saw your hand. Reminder to mute yourself if you're not.
We're under a discussion now on a motion to demand or set a date limit for them to provide their evidence. I would like to move to close this conversation and take a vote on that, because I think we're all kind of thinking out loud right now, and I'd rather just sort of make it see who wants to have the firm deadline and who doesn't, and then we can go from there.
Yep.
Fair enough. I think that's called moving to the previous question in Robert's parlance. And I don't know if that is a motion that needs to be seconded. Someone?
No, that's just a continuance of it.
Right. Okay. Then move to the previous question. So then I'm gonna call a vote on that motion, and I'm gonna go by the agenda. Okay. So I'm gonna call your name. I'm gonna ask you to unmute yourselves. I'm gonna say the vote after you say it, just to confirm that I've got it right. So Chair Sobran votes no. Vice Chair O'Hurry.
Votes yes.
Okay, Secretary Gober, Vice Chair O'Hurry votes yes. Secretary Gober is absent. Secretary Danberg.
Commissioner Danberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Danberg, you've just been promoted on accident. Okay. Commissioner Greenberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg votes yes. Commissioner Kale.
Yes.
Commissioner Kale votes yes. Commissioner Laurie is absent. Commissioner Lerner.
Yes.
Commissioner Lerner votes yes. Commissioner McCormick.
Yes.
Commissioner McCormick votes yes. There is a vacancy in District 2, and Commissioner Villalobos.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, 1 is the loneliest number. There being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ayes, 1 nay, no one abstaining, and I believe 2 absences and a vacancy. That motion prevails. So, all right. Motion carries. I see Commissioner Lerner, go ahead.
Okay, so now when we communicate with them this deadline, would I recommend, this is not a motion, this is a discussion. I recommend that we tell them at the same time that what the repercussions would be, i.e. we will move forward with the final hearing on X date regardless.
Sure. I think, the continuance was granted, without setting a final hearing date. And, part of that is generally done, for the sake of either flexibility in setting it at the next immediate hearing or finding a special called meeting date. I think kind of now that we have this motion and we're asking parties, we kind of set an evidentiary deadline of May 3rd. I think kind of by default, the following Wednesday, which is the 12th, I think is our next regularly scheduled meeting. So I think that would kind of be a natural date for a final hearing, but it could very well be, I guess, technically the week prior, if the parties agreed to kind of have a special called meeting on the 5th. If commissioners, if you all want to kind of vote on deciding that this is going to be a hearing date, that's fine. I would kind of advise against it, in part because setting a hearing date involves a bit of schedule Jenga between the availability of CTM, our outside counsel schedule, and then the complainant and respondent and their counsel. But I'm happy to discuss that point further if you'd like.
And Chair, this is Pedro. I unfortunately have to leave the meeting. One of my dogs had surgery because she has an issue with her cornea. So I do have to leave right now, deal with her. I apologize for that.
No need to apologize. You're excused, and best wishes for your friend. Furry friend. Thank you very much.
My furry friend. There you go. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Villalobos. All right, commissioners, is there any other discussion on agenda item 2? Commissioner Greenberg?
I think we should set the hearing for the 12th.
So the 12th will be our next regularly scheduled meeting.
I mean, it can always be changed, apparently. We've had hearings get postponed over and over and over,
Right.
but at least we should set the date.
I think we can make it our intention. Let's call it that. We say that, it seems that I'm just reading from the commission a strong preference that the final hearing be on the 12th, the date of our next regularly scheduled meeting. Is that right? Well, I think, Lynn, go ahead. I see you just popped up.
The commission does have the ability to schedule the final hearing if If they want to vote on it, they can schedule the final hearing for May 12th. That's the option.
I support that.
Sure. That, and commissioners, we are welcome to do that. The only kind of concern being that as long as it's with the understanding that just, let's know what we're voting on, that there could very well be something that happens between now and then that would prevent the final hearing from happening.
Our failure.
Sure. ERCOT.
Well, I do think that I do think we still have the issue of we have made a request to our lawyer, so for to amend the memo to help us to lay out the further legal questions for us to clarify those. So I think that would be, I would say, pending that we have that timely that communication from our outside counsel.
Is
Sure.
there a need to update the January 15th letter? Has anything changed?
Well, so real quick, I'm gonna just pump the brakes since we're kind of getting into things that we discussed in executive session. I think our outside counsel heard that request about getting clarity on certain legal issues, and I think he's capable of acting on that. So commissioners, if we're still interested in, I don't think, just Commissioner Lerner, to kind of address your question, I don't think that's going to require action in open meeting to vote to ask for something. But if we do want to set that final hearing date, then I think that we could. So I'm happy to entertain a motion to set the final hearing date if commissioners are so inclined.
So moved.
Okay.
May 12th.
Sure, and I'm going to interpret this as a motion to have the final hearing on May 12th, 2021. Okay. That was the motion by Commissioner Greenberg. Is there a second? I saw Commissioner McCormick's hand first. Seconded by Commissioner McCormick. Discussion on the motion. Going once. Going twice. Sold. I'm going to call roll in the same manner that I did earlier. And I'm just going to ask that you unmute yourselves, say your vote. I'll repeat your vote back to you to confirm, and we will move on that way. So Chair Soberon votes aye. Vice Chair O'Hurry
Votes aye.
Vice Chair O'Hurry votes aye. Secretary Gober is absent. We're back to Commissioner Danberg.
Well, I'm a bit concerned that AIDS starts at sundown, which might preclude some people from participating, but I will vote aye.
Okay, Commissioner Danberg votes aye. Where did my agenda go? Commissioner Greenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Greenberg votes aye. Commissioner Kale.
Aye.
Commissioner Kale votes aye. Commissioner Laurie is absent. Commissioner Lerner.
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner votes aye. Commissioner McCormick.
Aye.
Commissioner McCormick votes aye. There's a vacancy in District 2. Commissioner Villalobos is absent. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ayes, 3 absences, and 1 vacancy. Lynn, is that what you have?
7 + 4.
I think that's right.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries that we want that final hearing on the 12th. Great. Okay, commissioners, any other discussion on this agenda item? Then I'll just use my chairly prerogative to say that I share the frustration of a lot of commissioners that this is taking as long as it's taking. And if the parties are listening at home, I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we want to see a quick resolution to the complaint. So with that, we are going to move into item 3. Mr. Sheets, thank you very much for your help on this. I think I think that concludes discussion on the issue that we needed outside counsel for, and we will be in touch and see you soon.
All right, well, I'll excuse myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.